Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
And today we're going to be talking about Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Directed by Zack Snyder, starring Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Amy Adams, Lawrence Fishburne, Jesse Eisenberg, Jeremy Irons, and written by Chris Terrio and David S. Goyer. The movie's been out. This is its third weekend. I've seen it 3 times now. Once in IMAX, which was incredible. And John just saw it yesterday. Is that right?
Correct.
So we have not talked, so I do not know. He knows how I feel about it, and I'll just go ahead and say I like it a lot. And so I do not know how he feels about it, so we're going to just go ahead and jump into that. John, what's your initial reaction to Batman v Superman?
It was a good movie. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I'll go ahead and start off by saying I think that it was weighed down a lot by editing problems.
Interesting.
That I think made it a little hard for me to kind of grasp exactly what was going on. From here and there. I think a vast, or a large chunk of the audience that is going to go see this movie feels the same way. And that, I think, could be a lot of the problems with the low review and ratings that it is getting, which I don't think the movie deserves quite the criticism it's getting.
Right.
But I can understand it.
Last I checked, it's sitting at, I think, a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that's totally inaccurate as to where it should be. Blows
my mind, because I looked up Daredevil. I decided to look, after the movie was getting pretty much terrible reviews, I looked up Daredevil, and Daredevil's sitting at a 40-something%, like 44. So the fact that Daredevil, more critics like Daredevil than they liked Batman v Superman.
That's a ridiculous... That blows my mind.
When you say editing problems, are you talking about things that were potentially cut out of the film? Or do you think that scenes were edited poorly?
No, I just think that it was just... It didn't flow well. Like, you've got the stories going on, and you're in one scene, and you've got this thing going on, and then it cuts to something else that is totally unrelated, and kind of... And you're trying to get from point A to point B on this one subject matter, and then you're taken to a totally different area of the movie that has nothing to do with where you were trying to focus on, and you've got to focus on that. And then the second you're trying to do that, it takes you out of that and takes you somewhere else, and it just felt very jumbled.
I have to disagree with you. I can maybe point out 1 or 2 times where that I could see how that could be true, but honestly, for me, I going into the movie the first time. By the way, we're going to talk about the whole movie because I want to get into specifics here. I want to know what scenes you're talking about exactly. So if you haven't seen Batman v Superman, we're going to spoil the whole thing. So turn this off and go watch the movie and then come back. But before I saw the movie the first time, you showed me a video from Collider, where they were saying something very similar. They were saying that the editing was really bad and things should have been kind of moved around. It was just kind of almost every review I read said it was like a jumbled mess. And so I went into the movie thinking, okay, it's going to start off good and then it's going to just fall apart. And for me, it never happened. For me, it was, I thought it flows really well. I was entertained the whole time. I never once thought, I really want this to get moving, or why are we in this scene when we should be over here? So for me, honestly, it pieces together really, really well. I think the only time where you could say it maybe is slowed down by by going from one scene to another is when Wonder Woman is looking at those files of the Justice League members. But that, for me, works as well, even though it's in the middle of the Batman fight, I believe, or it's right before the Batman and Superman fight.
Right.
So at least it's not in the middle of the fight, but still, even that I think worked fine. So I'm curious what scenes specifically you're referring to about being misplaced or whatever.
I don't have anything specific. It's just, it felt like I'm watching the movie, you know, and you're going through, let's start at the beginning.
Sure.
It started out great.
Uh-huh.
Loved the way it opened up. And you start off with Bruce Wayne.
Sure.
And at the end of Man of Steel.
Right.
And he's going through all of the
Metropolis, yeah.
He's going through Metropolis in the car and the debris, and you've got cars falling and everything. You've got this big action scene, and from the beginning, I'm seeing Ben Affleck in the car, and I've got the cowl on him, and that's really the first time I think I've done that. Is in a movie have Bruce Wayne on screen, and I'm like, this is Batman driving this car. This isn't Bruce Wayne. Batman, I mean, this could be the Batmobile and it'd be the same situation. So all of the maneuvers and everything he's doing is totally believable because it's Batman. Right. I'll say Ben Affleck was amazing.
Yeah.
He's my favorite portrayal of Bruce Wayne and Batman to date.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's definitely. I think he's my favorite portrayal of Batman too. You know, it's hard to say that because I love Michael Keaton so much, but no, I agree. I think it's
especially Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
He was an exceptional Bruce Wayne.
Sure, yeah, I agree with that.
So you know, you've got that. You immediately get off the bat why and this is something that I read was an issue for a lot of people, was people not understanding why Batman and Superman were fighting
against each other.
And I can kind of agree to that to a degree. There was a couple parts in the last Batman and Superman fight where Superman was like, "You don't understand. Lex is trying to do this." And then Batman gets up in his face and he's like, "No, I do understand." And then Superman just pushes him.
Right.
And I'm like, "Why? You're trying to explain to him that what's going on, and why did you just push him?"
Right.
I didn't. You know, that was kind of I felt like the fighting, it never led up, or it never led up to the fighting. It was just Bruce Wayne is coming for Batman, or Bruce Wayne is coming for Superman. And then all of a sudden, they're just like fighting, and there was never really any like
setup
meld
for
with
it.
that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's, again, some of the reviews I read said there was lack of character motivation. You know, they didn't understand why, like you said, you know, why are these guys so against each other? It doesn't explain it well. And they also have problems with Lex Luthor's motivations. And I think that Batman's motivations it's not explained explicitly, but I think you can understand.
Oh, totally. I agree with that.
Why he's against Superman from the bat, basically. And then I think Superman, you know, I think you see that in the Clark Kent scenes. He has a real problem with how he thinks Batman is like terrorizing Gotham rather than really helping people. And he doesn't approve of his methods really, which is, you know, kind of common in the comics when Superman and Batman first meet.
Sure. But I think the way that, you know, that it was brought to be to how you were supposed to accept that as why Superman is going after Batman, I'm like, I don't think Superman would care that much about, and it sounds like I'm, you know, really criticizing this movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Sure.
I probably enjoyed it more than most people did. But I'm just getting down into the, you know, the little tiny things
specifics.
Yeah. Sure. Why Superman would, you know, he's saving people from exploding rockets, and what was the other thing that they showed him doing that was pretty cool.
He saved the girl from the fire in Mexico.
Right, yeah. I mean, Stuff like that. Why is he... I mean, this would technically be Superman's first villain if he views Batman as a villain.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I can kind of see that, but I don't know. It just it felt like it just felt a little forced, the Batman and Superman conflict. Not Batman's side though.
Sure.
Because from the beginning, where I was going with when they were showing the scene of his building, getting destroyed by Zod and Superman, and then it zooms in on Superman taking Zod, and you can just and shows Bruce Wayne's facial expression of you're the cause of all this.
He pretty much hates him from that moment on.
Yeah, so that's not confusing to me. I accept that. I liked that. I can understand why Batman is paranoid about an extremely overpowered being from another planet that he doesn't trust.
Right.
Especially one that he saw destroy his building and hurt a lot of people that he cared about.
And not only that, but I think, I, especially watching it second and third time, I kind of picked up on some other things, and I think he views him as this being, really. He doesn't view him as a person, where everywhere he goes, people die. And so when he's at Metropolis, people die. And then there's this whole thing in Africa in the beginning of the movie where they say people died because Superman showed up, which I'm sure Bruce Wayne heard about. And then when he goes to the Capitol blows up. So it's like everywhere Superman goes, people die.
That scene was amazing, by the way.
Right, yeah. I didn't see that coming either.
Yeah, I was going to say, my jaw dropped in both Man of Steel and this movie. Man of Steel, spoiler alert. I'm assuming if you watched Batman v Superman, you saw Man of Steel, but when Superman snaps Zod's neck, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
And then when with the explosion at the Capitol in this movie, that scene was amazing too. The whole just awkwardness with was it Holly Hunter?
Yeah.
And she was great too.
She was really, really good.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
But the awkwardness and you didn't, and it wasn't tense because you didn't know there was something to be tense about. Right. So it was really awkward because she's kind of stumbling, and then you see the T there, and you're like, did he really do that? And she's stumbling, and then it shows the people kind of picking up that she's stumbling, and they're looking at her weird, and then she turns the T, and then it shows the shot of Lex not there. And it wasn't until they cut to the second time where it was just like, okay, something's weird's going on here. And then bam, it just blows up in your face.
Yeah.
And then that's for me, that's when I was like, cause the explosion came from the chair, and you're like, Lex gave him the chair and he's not there. It was. I liked that scene a lot.
I really like the image of Superman standing in the flames.
Oh yes,
when he's got like that. I can't even. I'm not sure how to describe his face.
Almost had tears, I think, coming down his face. And that imagery was amazing because you can really read what's going on emotionally in him. There is and it follows through afterward. The scene after that where he goes to Lois Lane's balcony. And he's basically like, no matter what I do, even if my intentions are good, I'm affecting the world where people are going to make bad things happen because of me. And I don't think I can feel responsible for that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm trying to do good. So yeah, that was, I applaud that. I thought they pulled that off nicely.
Yeah. I did too. I'm hoping, we're talking about character motivations. I'm hoping this 3-hour R-rated version adds a little bit to it. We see a little bit maybe more why Superman, has a beef against Batman. And I'm hoping we see a little more with Lex Luthor too and his whole plan. Because there's one big question. His plan doesn't bother me. I know a lot of people don't like his plan. But his plan doesn't bother me. This whole setting Batman up against Superman, because it has really nothing to do with Batman. It's all about Superman. and it's about because his whole thing is if you can't be all good if you're that powerful. So he's gonna prove to the world that he's not, and that's by having him kill Batman.
Right.
And so, but he knows Batman has the kryptonite, so it's like a win-win for Superman. Either Superman kills Batman, and everybody sees that he's a murderer, or Batman kills Superman with the kryptonite, and you don't have Superman around anymore. And then the Doomsday thing, I think, was a backup plan, really. Which worked out because Superman and Batman didn't kill each other. Right. So I don't have any problem with his plan. Really, it doesn't bother me. The only thing that I cannot figure out, because the movie does not tell you how he figures this out, and it must be. I'm hoping it must be in the 3-hour version. Is Lex Luthor knows who Batman is. He knows that it's Bruce Wayne, and I don't know how. And he's apparently known for like 2 years. Because he tells, when Superman shows up, he says, "You've got a date across the harbor." And he goes, "It was 2 years in the making, but it didn't take much to push him through. A little, I believe he says something like, a few red notes, a big bang, you let your family die," which was sent to Bruce Wayne. It wasn't to Batman.
Right.
So somehow Lex Luthor knows Batman is Bruce Wayne, but I don't know how.
Those checks that were coming to him, weren't those from those were from the guy that was in the wheelchair?
They went to the guy in the wheelchair. I kind of think, and I don't know, this is just my interpretation. I kind of think that Lex Luthor intercepted those checks and sent them back.
Gotcha.
Just because Lex Luthor knew about the "you let your family die" note.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he kept those checks from getting to Wallace, is the guy's name in the wheelchair. Played by a great actor named Scoot McNairy. I think he kept those checks from getting to Wallace so that Wallace would, take the wheelchair and do the hearing and all that.
Okay. So you say Lex Luthor's plan, and this was some of the stuff that I felt like didn't get wrapped up for me.
Sure.
Some questions like, why did Lex want Superman, but aside from the fact that, he wanted to prove that he wasn't all good, was it jealousy?
I think so. I mean,
that's a traditional Lex Luthor, issue with Superman.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm going with. And I understand people have a problem with that. It wasn't, they never state why he has a problem with Superman, other than the fact that, he's just this powerful being, I guess. And to me, that's not an issue, because Lex Luthor has always hated Superman, and he's usually always hated Superman for being the more powerful person in Metropolis. And so I don't have an issue with that, with him showing up and being like this not all powerful, but like this big powerful being, and Lex Luthor not liking it. So, I mean, this Lex Luthor too is kind of crazy, and he's not just crazy behind closed doors; he's crazy everywhere. Yeah. Like when he's giving that speech in front of the people,
right.
There's a little bit of crazy, and by the end of the movie, I think he's gone off the rails.
Correct. I would agree with that. What did you think of Jesse Eisenberg's performance? First of all, it's important to note that this is not, at least in the way I'm taking it, is in this universe. This is not the bald-headed Lex Luthor that everyone knows from the comics. And right. I don't just mean traditional-wise. I mean that his dad, I think, was kind of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so the Lex Luthor that started the company had Superman been,
around
30 years earlier, then that would have been the Lex Luthor to deal with.
Right.
So I'm not saying that Lex Luthor didn't exist. It's just he was never in the universe when Superman was around.
Yeah.
This is Lex Luthor Jr.
Right. And I'm okay with looking at it like that. They obviously shave his head at the end of the movie, so he is going to be the kind of a bald Lex Luthor. I'm assuming. I don't know. I guess he's going to keep that look for upcoming films. I don't even know if he's in the Justice League, but But yeah, he says at the beginning of the movie, my dad was the Lex in front of LexCorp. So,
right.
And typically, I looked it up because I was curious about Lex Luthor's father from the comics, because I know from Smallville his dad's name is Lionel Luthor.
Uh-huh.
And so I looked it up. I was like, who's dad? And he's had different, like his father's had different names, I guess, throughout the years. But originally it was, I'm going to forget now. It was Jules, I think, or something like that. His name was like Jules Luthor. But now I think most comics, go by the Lionel. They take it from Smallville, the Lionel Luthor. So nowhere has it been Alexander and Alexander Jr. So this is kind of new. So I do kind of think that he is Lex Luthor Jr. And I'm okay with that. And I'm curious if they threw that line in there when they cast Jesse Eisenberg. Because he is just, even though he's the same age in real life as Henry Cavill, he just looks so much younger.
Right. I think they probably did it because they wanted to say, we want to do a different take on Lex Luthor.
Right.
We don't want to make fans mad that we're changing Lex Luthor, so we're just going to say that Lex Luthor does exist. He just never knew Superman.
Right.
And this is a different Lex Luthor so that we can make him the way we want to, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, that very well could be. Although I don't really see Zack Snyder caring that much. I mean, I guess he does care a little bit about upsetting fans, but he killed off Jimmy Olsen in this movie. So, if you notice, they never say his name, but in the credits in the beginning, the photographer that's with Lois in
I was wondering about that.
Is Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, well, the fact that he says that line, though, that Lex was... what's the line exactly?
His dad was the Lex in front of LexCorp.
Right. I think the fact that they say that is to tell the audience this is not the real Lex, or this is a different Lex Luthor.
Sure. And I'm okay with that.
I am too. I really liked Jesse Eisenberg's performance.
Did you really?
I thought he did. I liked it.
The first time I saw it, I thought it was a little over the top, a little too over the top. It kind of, especially on the helipad scene. I thought he was just
I get that,
chewing the scenery, but with repeat viewings, I can appreciate it a little bit more. So I don't hate his performance by any means. I think he's kind of the weaker link of the cast, but yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, especially, and I agree that the helipad was the most questionable.
Yeah.
But there were moments on the helipad too where he's describing, remembering his father and stuff, and
right.
I just felt like some of that acting was good, and it's a very intense acting because of the way he's portraying Lex. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you do almost get that he's overacting a bit, but I appreciated it.
Yeah. What do you think about Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman?
I didn't think there was enough acting, really,
right,
to say anything about her.
Yeah.
I loved the entrance, when she comes in and saves...
During the Doomsday fight?
Yeah. And the music, her theme, I think was I liked that, too.
Yeah, I did, too. I bought the soundtrack before I saw the movie, and I was like, I didn't care for the theme at first, but once I saw it in the movie, I loved it. I thought it was great. Her showing up and that music playing is one of my favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think she's fine. I think she's really good. I mean, she, like you said, she's not given a whole lot in the movie, but the little bit that she is in the movie, I think she's fine. There were some complaints that she's wooden, that she doesn't have like the range.
I don't even think there's enough evidence for that.
Right. I think she's perfectly fine. So I'm actually really looking forward to the Wonder Woman movie coming out next year. Speaking of the Doomsday fight, the fight obviously where Wonder Woman shows up, what did you think of Doomsday and how he was presented in this film?
So I remember the first time that you got the glimpse of Doomsday, which was the second trailer.
Yeah.
And my heart dropped.
Yeah.
In a bad way.
Yeah, mine too.
Because it just, I heard afterwards people comparing him to the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and everything, and I can see that. And me being having such a hard time accepting CGI for most cases, I was very, very I was not excited about this.
Yeah.
It did not bother me really at all, which shocked me.
Yeah.
I thought he looked, and I think one thing that helped it was, and any, I'm not saying I'm not giving advice to studios to do this in the future, because I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think something that helped with it was the fact that it was done at night. It was a night scene. And they really didn't stay focused on Doomsday that much.
Right.
So, but even shots that they did where you could see the detail, he looked pretty good. I also liked how big he was. Doomsday's
I did too.
Not really supposed to be twice the size of Superman.
Right.
He's bigger than Superman, but not that big.
Right, and I really liked it too. I thought it actually, visually, seeing Superman fight him looked really, really good. Like, especially the very first time, like pretty much right after he's born, he's like about to punch Lex Luthor, and Superman stops his fist.
Yeah.
His fist is like almost big as like half of Superman's body, basically, and that shot right there, I just was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed when I first saw it, because at first, and just because the scene had to kind of play out. At first, when he first is kind of born, he has like no bone protrusions, and I was like, it doesn't really look like Doomsday at all.
Right.
But then as it goes on and you see him like feeding off the energy and the bones start popping out, I was really, really digging that whole fight, actually.
Yeah, I liked it too. My biggest thing, or the complaint I'll pull from it, is I feel like it didn't quite get into the Spider-Man 3 territory where everything was just kind of smashed in there together, but it almost felt like that to me. Like, I'm like, I would have appreciated it, I think, more if we had gotten that in another movie, where you could have focused more on Doomsday and what he was, instead of just being like, it was like he was thrown in there, and I think he was. It didn't ruin it for me. I'm okay with the scene. I enjoyed the scene, but I feel like we were kind of gypped, because that's all the Doomsday we're going to get, at least.
Sure.
What we,
And I think part of the reason that fight scene, I mean, it's not a terribly short fight scene by any means, but I think part of the reason why I don't think we're going to get, or why maybe part of the reason why we didn't get a full Doomsday fight scene, is because there was so much destruction in Man of Steel, and everybody had such a big problem with it that, like, I mean, I don't think they could have had a fight scene like the fight they had in the comics without people,
right,
being upset again that
no
Superman's
kidding.
destroying Metropolis yet again.
The power that was coming from Doomsday was just insane. I'm like, this is getting into anime territory here. We're like going into Dragon Ball Z stuff, which I was really excited about.
Yeah, I really liked. I mean, in the comics, he doesn't have similar powers to Superman. He doesn't have the heat vision and stuff. But since this was General Zod being kind of transformed, I really liked how they did that and how they made him Kryptonian, basically, and how he had those powers and everything and fed off the energy. I thought it really worked. I thought they did a really good job with it. And to me, it didn't feel crammed in there, but, I don't know. So, yeah, I really liked it. And then we'll get to the ending in a minute. I actually kind of want to backtrack and hit some of the beginning parts of the film a little more before we get to the ending. One of the scenes I have written down is the nightmare scene, the apocalypse dream sequence, you could call it. I don't know. I have some I have some. I don't know if it's not really my theory. I read an article about one of the storyboard artists who worked on the film is one of the directors of a lot of the DC animated films, and he directed the Flashpoint Paradox.
Mm-hmm. Great,
which is
great movie.
Easily probably the best DC animated film. And he was talking about how it's just his interpretation. He didn't talk to Zack Snyder about it, but he feels that it's not necessarily a dream sequence. It's more of because the Flash is time traveling. It's causing like I don't know if it's different universes or if it's alternate timelines, but some like wires are getting crossed basically, and it's more of a weird memory that he's kind of remembering this weird futuristic, like this future possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then because right after it happens, the Flash shows up and is trying to talk to Bruce, and we assume he's talking about Superman, but I don't necessarily know if he is talking about Superman. He says, you were right about him, fear him, you know?
Yeah.
We think he's talking about Superman because he talks about Lois Lane and how she's the key, but I read an article that Flash sequence was added in kind of at the last minute, which also makes me wonder about the nightmare sequence. Maybe it was just a dream. But the Flash sequence was added in at the last minute while they were writing Justice League. Zack Snyder was like, oh, we should put this in this movie kind of so that way when they see Justice League, it'll pay off. So that makes me think maybe they're not talking about – Flash wasn't talking about Superman. But seeing Flash show up I thought was really, really cool. Yeah. What did you think about that whole sequence?
I thought that they were visions from Darkseid.
Right. Obviously, there's a lot of Darkseid hinted at in the nightmare sequence. There's the big Omega symbol, and there's the parademon characters, the winged creatures. So yeah, there's a lot of Darkseid going on there. And even though Bruce Wayne wakes up from the desk and the Flash is there, and then he wakes up from the desk again, on that second time he wakes up, you'll notice in the background there's papers floating to the floor, which there were papers being swirled all about when the Flash was there. So it makes me think that the Flash... I really wish he didn't wake up from the desk like that because it makes it super confusing. But I really think he was actually visited by the Flash. That wasn't a dream.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Now that you've brought that out to light, I would say that that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really cool,
I like that viewpoint on it. That it's like a weird wire getting crossed, and he's either like remembering something from a possible future kind of thing, or something, you know. Or he's like seeing into a different world almost, kind of, you know?
Right.
Or a possible future, like I said. I don't know if Darkseid can give visions like that, but if it could be a vision from Darkseid or something, you know? But obviously Darkseid is involved in that future.
Right. Yeah, and that's where they're going. He's never named, but Lex Luthor kind of said, you know, he says that at the end, and that's what he's talking about, is Darkseid.
He's coming, yeah.
I didn't like I love the red capes are coming line.
Right.
But I did not like the ding 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 of the bells. I felt like that was a little overdone.
It is what it is, you know.
It is what it is. What did you think of the files of the metahumans?
I really liked it. You know, we knew Aquaman was in the film at some point. And so before we saw the files, actually, even after I saw the files, I kept expecting him to show up during the Doomsday fight. Like when Lois was trapped underwater, I was like, oh, Aquaman's going to save her. I just like kept expecting him to show up for some reason. I thought he was going to be, because since we saw a picture of him and you can buy like action figures of Aquaman, I thought he was going to have a bigger presence in the film. I'm actually glad he didn't, because then I think it would have been a little Spider-Man 3-ish, and it would have felt a little... Some people are complaining that the metahuman file videos that she watches feels forced into the film. I didn't feel that way, personally. I think it would have felt more forced if Aquaman had shown up during the fight and like saved Lois Lane and then been like, all right, see ya.
Yeah,
see you in the next movie.
I see how they can feel... how it feels forced, but only... if you're looking for it.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like that scene happened and it takes you out of the movie and you're like, oh, why are they doing this?
Right.
if you had no idea about superheroes to begin with. Only reason it feels forced is because you know who those characters are, and you know that they're not in this movie. So that's why it feels forced. I, though, felt like the footage that they showed of them was just really lackluster. It shows the Flash saving someone
stopping a convenience store robbery.
From a convenience store robbery. You could have done something a lot cooler with the Flash than that. And also, Aquaman's was even worse. He just kind of stares at this underwater camera for like 10 seconds too long, and then just like pokes it. And like the swimming off was kind of cool, but I felt like they just kind of missed their opportunity on that one.
I thought it was fine. I liked them both.
I liked Cyborgs pretty well.
Sure.
I was kind of hoping that his dad would have referenced something about that being his son.
Right.
But anyway.
And
I don't know
box
why,
was confirmed as a mother box, which is also has ties to Darkseid.
Huh?
That box that like attaches itself to Cyborg.
Oh, gotcha.
Is a mother box, I think is what it's called. And then those are those have to do with Darkseid as well.
Gotcha. I don't know why, especially with today's technology, recorded footage, directors feel like they have to make the footage like distorted.
Right.
Like it's having problems recording to show that it's recording. I mean, footage doesn't do that anymore.
Right.
You don't have that. So just show straight up footage, not with the little lines and distorted audio and
right.
Anyway,
the convenience store footage doesn't bother me, even though it is distorted, and that's kind of but because I don't know if he's got the costume yet, if he is the Flash yet, or if he's just got the powers. So I thought that was a fine way to show him. And then the Aquaman thing didn't bother me because I don't think it was a man or a manned vessel. I think it was just like a robotic vessel.
Yeah.
Thing.
Sure.
So that was cool. I like them both. And I like the Cyborg one. Some people have a problem with like, I read an article. It was a really obnoxious article, but the guy was like, "Oh, the world's falling apart, but no worries. I'll just check my email." Talking about Wonder Woman. But you have to remember, Wonder Woman gave up on mankind. She says she gave up on mankind 100 years ago, so she wasn't planning on joining any sort of fight. She was like, she's getting on a plane. The next time you see her, she's leaving. So I don't, find it unbelievable that she's on her computer while this stuff's going on. In fact, she's like looking at what's going on in Metropolis. She's like reading the news when she gets that email, or when she sees the email from Bruce Wayne about her photograph in the metahuman files. So
right.
I didn't have a problem with that at all. I don't really have a problem with a lot of the film, like some people do.
It's like, for me, it's like there were lots of really good moments that I enjoyed. And nothing really that was just like eye-rolling, like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, why would they do this? But I felt like there were several parts throughout the movie that just took away from the awesomeness that the others had, that the other parts of the movie had.
Well, that's a bummer. I was really hoping you'd really, really love it like I do, but whatever. I like this one a lot more than Man of Steel.
Yeah, see, I like Man of Steel better.
Yeah, I can gather. But I like this. I liked it a lot the first time I saw it. I think you might enjoy it more the second time you watch it, but...
Oh, I'm sure I will. That's the thing is, like I'm saying,
liked it even more the second time. Yeah.
I haven't... I know that there's going to be a lot more that I gather, and stuff's going to make a little bit more sense to me. Mm-hmm. Just little tiny things.
Right.
That... Because it's a very informational movie.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I actually am glad that it's like that. I don't want a 2-hour action scene movie and 30 minutes of dialogue and stuff. I want primarily dialogue to explain the story and the reason why all this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
I
think even if you see it a second time and don't like it or like it the same, I think by the time the 3-hour version comes out, I think I'm hoping anyway, fingers are crossed, that the 3-hour version answers a lot of these kind of questions we have and just makes it that much better. Like, I'm really excited about watching the 3-hour version.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming they probably had to cut some stuff out for time, and that was some of the stuff that people are having, or
totally.
like I have a question with and whatnot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How did you feel about the conclusion of Batman and Superman
fighting?
They're fighting, and why that transitioned into not fighting.
Well, I have a strong interpretation for this, I think, because I've read online again, and it was mostly from this one obnoxious article where people seem to think that it's just the name Martha. It's just the fact that they both have moms named Martha, and that's why they stopped fighting. Right? And I don't believe that at all. I think it really works in the movie, personally. I think
I'm still trying to fathom people actually thinking.
I read an article where the article was like 22 things that are wrong. I posted it on our website, actually. 22 things that are wrong with Batman v Superman. I was reading them all, right? And he says a lot of the stuff because it's always about. But he's like, hey, your mom's name is Martha, so's mine. Now we're BFFs.
Oh my!
And so, I felt like he missed the point completely. The guy that wrote that, because to me, what this, throughout that whole fight, Batman says twice that Superman is not a man. Like in the very beginning of the fight, when he first hits him with kryptonite, he tells Superman, that's fear. You're not brave. Men are brave. And then they go into their fight. And then at the very end of the fight, he's about to stab him with the spear, and he says, you're not a god. You're not even a man. And then there's a line in the trailer that didn't make it into the movie where he says, which was straight out of The Dark Knight Returns, says, it's time you learn what it means to be a man. So throughout this whole fight, Batman keeps repeating to Superman that he's not a man. Batman does not view Superman as a man whatsoever. Right. All he sees Superman as this alien who's come to Earth and caused a lot of death and destruction. And so when he's about to kill Superman kind of throws him off by saying, you're letting him kill Martha. That's the first thing he says.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just catches Batman off guard because, number one, he's not expecting him to say that. And number two, Martha was his mom's name. And I don't think he has a emotional reaction every time he hears the name Martha. But in this moment, when he least expects it, he's hearing somebody say, you're letting him kill Martha.
Right.
And that, I think, triggers an emotional response. It's the last word his dad ever spoke was Martha. And he probably has been beating, he probably is, maybe not anymore, but he, especially as a young man, he probably beat himself up about not intervening and he letting that man kill his mom. So that part gives him pause, right? And he gets angry because I think at that moment he thinks maybe Superman's trying to mess with his head or something.
Right, especially after all these nightmares he's been having.
Right, and so then he wants answers. And so he starts yelling at him, why'd you say that name? And Lois shows up and says it's his mother's name. And I think at that moment, it's not because his mom's name is Martha. It's at that moment that Batman realizes that Superman is a man.
Right, he's
a man with a mother who he loves and is willing to die for.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So
of course that's what that is.
Right.
And I don't see how you could interpret that any other way.
Right. And I felt like it needed to be said because, I feel like I've read a lot of articles where it's just about the name Martha. It has nothing to do with Superman's mom. Now, there is one line of dialogue in the scene that I thought kind of threw a wrench in my theory because it's right before he's going to stab him with the spear. He's dragging him on that wire. And Batman says to Superman, I bet your parents taught you that you mean something, that you're here for a reason. And so when I heard that line, I was like, crap. he thinks, he's mentioning his parents, but I think he's referring to his Kryptonian parents.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good point, though. That's a good question, because he almost hits the nail on the head. Well, right. Not necessarily because of his dad, who kind of wanted him to hide.
Right.
But traditionally,
the Kents believe that he's here for a reason.
Right.
And so when I first heard that line, I was like, oh, well, I guess the second time I saw the movie and I heard that line, I was like, oh, crap. But I really do. The way I choose to hear that line is he's referring to Kryptonian parents. Because Bruce has never even bothered to try to figure out who Superman is. He doesn't see him as a human being. He just sees him as an alien. So, I don't really think he sees him as a human. And so I don't think he has any reason to believe that he has human parents. Superman didn't show up until he was in his 30s. So, it's possible Batman just believes that he just showed up. He came, unless there was some news story about him being the last Kryptonian and Krypton blowing up and all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like to think that he's talking about his Kryptonian parents in that scene, in that line. Because right. I really do think that the reason he stops from killing Superman is because he realizes he has a human mother.
Absolutely. And it also is Batman getting his humanity back, because he's lost a lot of it.
Right. Although I think that comes a little bit later as well. I think it kind of comes back there. Because, another problem people have with the film is that Batman kills people in this movie. Which Batman has killed people in the Keaton movies, and I looked up a video. He's killed people in the Nolan universe too, even though he has a huge rule against killing. In The Dark Knight Rises, he shoots the guy that's driving the truck. He shoots the guy from the bat. But in this one, he's blatantly killing. He's blowing cars up. He's he kills the guy with the flamethrower. So, but my interpretation of this is that he's gone, before the movie came out, we heard about how this is a darker Batman who's been pushed beyond he's past his breaking point. And I think he just doesn't care anymore. Right. And Alfred even at one point kind of calls him out on it. He shows him the newspaper with the branded criminal, and he's like, new rules? And Batman's like, we're criminals. We've always been criminals. Nothing's changed. And Alfred says, everything's changed. And then he starts talking about Superman, so you think he's talking about Superman, but I really think he means...
And even before that, Alfred does the line about driving men cruel.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of foreshadowing, I think. He's kind of saying, I don't think he's saying it at that moment, but he's like, this is you. You are the one that's being driven to become cruel.
Absolutely. I think Alfred even questions his methods now at this point, but he's not. He still sees kind of the good in it, I suppose. The good that he's doing anyway. But he's starting to be like, you know what? You're not the same Bruce that started doing this.
Right.
And so, he, like you said, it brings his humanity back, and I do believe it does. But he's still killing. When he goes to save Martha, he still kills a bunch of people. And so I don't think it's really until after Superman sacrifices himself that he realizes that he's got to change what he's doing. Because he even says, he's talking about in the end scene, when Wonder Woman says that she's given up on mankind, he says men are still good. He's like, we kill, we betray each other. He's like, but we can rebuild, we can be better. And I really think he's talking about himself. I think he's talking about mankind, but he's also talking about himself. We can be better. And he says, I failed him in life, I'm not going to fail him in death. And so I think from that moment on, he's decided he's going to go back to how he used to do things, And it's proven, it's shown in the scene with Lex Luthor. Because he brings that bat brand, if you will, which he branded that other guy, and we found out that it's a death sentence in prison. If you have the brand of the bat, you're going to get murdered in prison.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
I don't know why that is, but maybe there's weird Batman followers in prison or something. I don't know, but that's what the news tells us. It's a death sentence, so we go with it and we believe it. And so he has the opportunity to kill Lex Luthor, because he could brand Lex Luthor, and then Lex Luthor would most likely be murdered in prison. But he decides not to. He chooses not to. He chooses to take the path Superman would have taken and lets him live. And so I think that's the moment when you really see the change in Batman. And so for me, like, I don't have a problem with him killing, because I really think you have to see that arc. And some people might say it's not enough, it's not shown enough or something, but personally, for me, it was enough. And I really, really liked it. And I do like this interpretation of Batman. I think he's amazing.
Oh, I agree. Yep. With that and the interpretation. Superman, on the other hand, I don't think as innocent as he was supposed to be, because he's like, I don't kill, and he says that to Lois Lane when he comes back, from
Africa,
right? And when that guy's holding Lois Lane at gunpoint in Africa, Superman just like shoves him through about 5 walls of concrete.
Yeah.
I'm like, that guy did not survive. He's about as flat as a pancake right now, unless Superman's holding his hand out in front of them, pushing the concrete walls down as they go, but I don't think that happened. Second of all, he's not very careful with Batman.
No.
Throwing him around. Like, he's throwing Batman into concrete walls. He has no idea what kind of suit Batman's wearing and if it's able to withstand this stuff. And he says, if I wanted it, you'd be dead already. I'm like, you kind of putting him on the edge of death, to your knowledge.
Right.
He should be dead if he was not wearing that suit, and you have no idea what he's wearing. So I felt like Superman was not careful with Batman's life at all.
I guess he just put a lot of trust into that armored suit. It's funny because you say that about the African quote maybe terrorist. He asks him if he's a terrorist, and I didn't even think about that. But he does fly him through quite a bit of walls, so that guy's probably dead. I'm curious about that scene, because they all think Superman killed people, and so I'm wondering if the people. I don't know if they're referring to the people that the Lex Luthor's private security team killed with the guns, or if there was like collateral damage from Superman flying through those walls and stuff. If there were other people that were killed.
Right.
So I don't know. But you were talking earlier about Superman pushing Batman, and I think it's just, it could be, and maybe I'm reaching here, I don't know. But Batman's just not listening. He says, you got to listen to me, and then Batman hits him with the sonic thing, and then he's got the guns on him. Actually, I think the guns come later after the push, but he hits him with the sonic thing, and he says, you don't understand. There's no time, and he goes, I understand. And I think he just pushes him to get him to because he's not listening. I think it's just to get him to listen. And then he's
not
getting
a very good way to get someone to listen to you.
Not Batman, especially. But his mom is in trouble, and I think he's getting upset. That's my thing. But I don't know. I love that fight sequence. That whole scene is shot with IMAX cameras. So when you see it in the IMAX, it's the whole screen, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. So. Yeah, I wish it was a tiny bit longer. A lot of people talk about how the movie's not really Batman v Superman. It's because the fight scene's like 2 minutes long. But as short as it is, I think it's amazing.
I agree. I really liked, the Batman and Superman fighting stuff that we saw. The movie was a very long movie, but it did not feel like a chore ever to watch. I never was like, okay, I'm ready for the credits, ever.
Right.
And in fact, I wanted it to continue.
Yeah, actually, when the credits rolled, the first time I saw it, I was like, no! Even though the ending's about to happen, especially because Superman's dead. But,
right.
But yeah, I just wanted that movie to keep going.
Yeah. I'm glad they killed Superman.
Yeah.
It was, to me, very predictable because you got Doomsday. And,
right.
I mean, you've got, thinking about from a studio's perspective, we are putting Doomsday in a Superman movie. Death of Superman is like the greatest, or the,
one of the best-selling
comics of all time. We're going to have to kill Superman with Doomsday being in the movie.
Right.
Hopefully, it'll get that same effect.
Right.
Superman's dead, just like the comic book had across the world.
Yeah.
It didn't have that effect. I somehow avoided the spoilers and didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was still a shock to see. I mean, when you see Doomsday's, like that spike come out of his wrist, and it focuses on that, you're like, okay, that's going through Superman. But even still, when it happens, it was a powerful scene. But I'm glad they did it. I think with Doomsday, like I was saying, with Doomsday in the film, you've got to kill Superman. Otherwise, you're missing something.
Wasting Doomsday, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's what I was worried about, because I honestly, you and I had a conversation about it a while ago, and before we had that conversation, I thought, they're not going to kill off Superman. I just couldn't see it happening. And so I was really disappointed that Doomsday was in the film, because I thought they're wasting Doomsday. Why have Doomsday in the movie if you're not going to kill off Superman? And then you and I had that conversation, and I was like, all right, maybe you're right. Maybe they do kill off Superman. And so I did see, I kind of saw it coming. And I wish I hadn't, when the movie started coming out, especially when it was getting bad reviews, I kind of wanted to read what was going on. And I read a couple of reviews, and nobody spoiled it, but somebody said that there's big surprises in the last final moments of the movie or something like that. And so I was like, all right, well, he's going to die. And so yeah. I kind of knew going in. The only thing that really surprised me throughout the film was the Capitol blowing up.
Right.
Because, unfortunately, and I really wish that I hadn't read this, but I read an Entertainment Weekly article on the movie, or I started to read it, and it spoiled the Flash scene showing up after the nightmare sequence. And so I was like, oh, well, that would have been cool to see in the to experience rather than knowing it's coming. Because the article said it was like the Flash gives him a futuristic vision or something like that. And I was like, oh, great. So really, I kind of saw the death coming, and I really didn't feel like there were very many surprises in the movie other than the Capitol bombing. But nonetheless, I enjoyed it a lot, and I thought I was really glad that they did kill him off, and I'm glad that they killed him off. Even though he's coming back in the next movie, he's they didn't resurrect him right away. It wasn't like he died it wasn't like the end of a sci-fi film of recent years.
Uh-huh.
So and he's, even though it's hinted that he's going to resurrect at the end of the film, he's dead. And one of the reasons I like that they did it, and I also like that part of the reason they did it was so that Batman could be the guy to round up the Justice League.
Exactly. And that was another reason why I was like, they're going to kill Superman, was because what better way and more logical way to say we need a Justice League now?
Yeah.
Is because we don't have Superman.
Right.
And we need everyone.
There's something coming,
Yeah, there's something coming, and we need everyone to come together to kind of make up a second Superman to a degree.
Right.
So it just made everything kind of made sense to kill Superman.
Yeah.
It shocked me that they showed the dirt on his tombstone at the end,
on a coffin.
Yeah, his coffin. I'm assuming that's them saying he's back already.
Yeah, the coffin scene, the dirt coming off the coffin. Zack Snyder said that he almost didn't put that in the movie, but I guess he wanted to give kind of a sense of hope that he was going to come back for the folks that maybe aren't familiar with the death of Superman, I guess. I don't really know what that means, because we've seen from Man of Steel that when he flies,
right,
when he's about to fly, the ground kind of levitates, or the dirt around him kind of levitates. So is he about to just bust out of the coffin and start flying, or is it just the energy kind of radiating off his body, he's still alive, and it's just kind of, I don't know what that. I mean, obviously it means that he's going to come back, but I don't know why the dirt is rising exactly.
Right.
But it's a cool last image, though. I like it.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool how they had the two different ceremonies.
Yeah.
Or the funerals.
Yeah.
You had Superman's funeral where you had everyone was there, and you had the gun salute.
And I like the silver Superman logo on the casket.
Yeah, it was just tremendous. And then you had also, and it would cut back and forth. I liked the way that was done too, to the old, farm funeral where there was just a couple people.
Wooden box. Not even like a nice casket, really.
Being carried by horses pulling a wagon. Two stark different, images of what, and all for the same person.
Right. Even though some of the people at Clark's funeral just thinks it's Clark. Because, Perry White is there and stuff. They don't know he's Superman.
Unless I know, but I'm saying it just was showing how some people knew him like this.
Sure.
The rest of the world were like, it's Superman.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But the same guy is not getting the same recognition.
Right.
Yeah. How did you feel about his portrayal, this new portrayal of him in cinema?
Of Batman?
Yeah. Did you see
like I said,
a difference?
I really liked it.
Was there did you see much of a difference between this and the Nolan verse, or?
Yeah, I mean, physically he's huge. There's a pretty, even though Christian Bale was by no means like a small dude, Ben Affleck just got huge for this movie, and he is a intimidating Batman. And I just, I've ever since we saw the costume from what was it, 2 years ago, they released the image, and we saw that it was the kind of black and gray, even though it was a black and white picture. We just saw the difference, at least from the cowl and the bodysuit and all that. I just love how he looks in this movie.
Yeah.
I love how he fights in this movie, and I love how big he is, and at first, I thought I was going to not like the voice changing aspect. But they explained that pretty well with Alfred working on it, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with the microphone. And I go with it. I think it works really well, and it makes sense. He changes his voice to be Batman rather than the Christian Bale,
right,
I'm Batman type of thing. So,
right. And I think it's cool too, because you have is he changing it to hide his voice because he's a famous billionaire? I go more along the lines of he's changing his voice because when you have a hulking guy that's 6'4", that big coming towards you, and he sounds like a demon, I mean, you're wetting your pants.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
you're not
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's probably both reasons, for intimidation and for to hide his identity, but probably even more so for intimidation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I love the Batcave. I love, like you said, Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne is incredible, and I pretty much love every time Batman was on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, version of Batman.
Yeah.
Even though he kills throughout the movie, and I'm hoping that my theory on him changing is correct, and Zack Snyder doesn't have him killing a bunch of people in Justice League, because then I'll be like, well, okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I like the heroes to maintain the moral aspect of we don't kill because we're not lowering ourselves to be like villains, which are doing it intentionally. There's got to be a line there. You've got to have a definition of what good is.
Right.
And I think a lot of I think we're kind of losing some of that in society. I'm not trying to get all
political.
But I think you're going to start seeing more of because it kind of came about with Zod in Man of Steel. They were like, well, Zod's not really a bad guy. He's just misunderstood. And I'm like, he's pretty evil. And I like having, being able to have that distinction.
Right.
and say, look, this guy is evil. There is evil, and this guy is bad. He's not just misunderstood.
Right.
So I hope we don't lose that, and I hope that on the flip side of that, that heroes maintain their moral, views, and that there's not kind of a blurred line there.
Right. I completely agree with you.
Henry Cavill had a lot more substance to him in this movie.
Yeah, and I liked this, I liked Man of Steel a whole lot, but I think every time Superman was kind of on screen in this movie, I was kind of wowed a little bit more. I just thought that Superman in this movie was more like what I wanted to see out of Superman. Not that there was anything really wrong with Man of Steel. It's more of a visual sense. Like, I wasn't super impressed with the flying sequences and stuff in Man of Steel, whereas I really liked him in this movie. Mm-hmm. So,
he had more to say too,
Yeah, and he had obviously a lot of weight on his shoulders from, trying to do good but having problems with, things happening and whatnot, and not even things that he could really control. People blaming him for things that he may or may not even. I wonder if some of that stuff from Africa was fabricated by Lex Luthor. So, I mean, obviously, Lex Luthor hired those guys to kill people.
That. I think that was.
There's a lady that testifies, and it makes me wonder if she's being truthful or not. If people were really killed in her, like people she cared about, or if obviously people died, people were shot. But I mean, or is she one of Lex Luthor's, on Lex Luthor's payroll, and she's there to testify that Superman showed up and killed a bunch of people.
Right. Yeah, there might be like a deleted scene that we'll get on, the 3-hour version of like Lex handing her an envelope or something.
Right.
One of my favorite lines, which was just really showing the confidence of Superman, but I think it was the moment where I felt like I was getting the most character from him, and just I felt like I was like he was really there, and was up on the helipad with Lex Luthor, and he's talking about the woman he cares about, and he's like, Lois is on the ground. And it was something about the way his face was and the confidence and the comfort where he's like, I've taken care of that. He's like, you've got nothing. I'm here now, and we're going to handle this. Just little stuff like that I thought Cavill really delivered on, and he's an amazing Superman. I'm so happy. Christopher Reeve will always be my favorite Superman. I think he's the classic Superman, but Henry Cavill I think is a really good Superman. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you.
I can't see anyone else playing him. Right now with Christopher Reeve being gone, and would be well into his his elder years.
If he was still alive, I think he'd be in his 60s at least, I think, by now.
Yeah. So.
He died it was 12 years ago. Well, not quite. I think he died in October of 2004, but still, a long time ago. It's hard to believe. Well, I think that's about all I had to say on the film. If you have nothing more to add, I think we can go into our ratings. I'll go first. I love this movie. I've seen it 3 times. I would see it again. I can't wait for the 3-hour version. So, the few problems the movie does have will detract from the grade, but it doesn't really bring the grade down as low as I think some people would give it. And you might think it's crazy, but I'm going to give it an A-. It really works for me.
That's actually the first, when I was trying to picture what you were going to go with, that's the first one that popped in my head was A- actually. I hate to give it this grade because I don't do halves. But I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 stars. Which is, and the reason I started doing the star rating was because of ratings on Netflix, and Netflix has the the star system where you've got 5 stars, you loved it, 4 stars, you really liked it, 3 stars, you liked it, and that's where I want to put my rating. Is I liked it. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. If I was doing halves, I'd give it 3.5, but I'm not, so I'm going to make it 3.
Yeah. It's the same grade Richard Roper gave it. So, I mean, it's still a positive review. You were one of the 29% or 28% that liked it. If you were a critic on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. I did like it. Like I said, probably more than most people, even that say they liked it. I probably liked it more than that.
What's really strange to me is that, you know, most movie websites I read, and not most critics, because the only critic I really follow is Richard Roper, in terms of like big name critics. But based off the Rotten Tomatoes and a lot of the movie websites I read, and a lot of the people that write for those movie websites, all seem to really not like it. They have their problems with it outweigh the good, pretty much. It seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But not every person, but a lot of people I've spoken to in person have all loved it. Like, I talked to a guy last weekend who was talking about how he said he was getting angry at how many people didn't like it. He was like, because he just didn't see the problems that everybody else had with it.
Right.
And so the fact that it's just getting bashed was like actually making him angry, because he talked about how he loved it so much. And one of my friends who got to see it early, she loves it a lot. She even saw it before the reviews came out. And so when the reviews started coming out, she like just could not understand what was going on, because she loved it so much. And so it's like a lot of the people I talk to all really, really like it, but then the critics and people who write for movie blogs and stuff just kind of hate it, really. And it's very strange to me.
Yeah, I don't get the hate at all. I mean, it was a good movie.
It's got, like I said, it's got 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, but then if you look at the user score, which is like what, basically the fan score, it's sitting at like a 70-something, which I feel like is where the critic score should be. Like, I feel like that's about right for the movie, 70-something.
Yep.
I could see some critics not liking it, but most people liking it. But for whatever reason, the critics just hated on it. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
I just don't, 28%, it's not a 28% movie.
Yeah.
It deserves way higher than that. And the fact that Daredevil's higher than it, just like I said, just blows my mind. Critics liked him as Daredevil more than they liked him as Batman. Which might not be true. They might have liked the movie Daredevil more than Batman.
Which I still don't believe. And I think you brought that up, and I bet if you were to bring that to their attention, they'd be like, no, Daredevil was by far a worse movie. But according to what they're showing, they're not saying that.
Right.
Also, they didn't really like Man of Steel. Man of Steel sits at what, 54 or 56?
I think. 54, 56, yeah, something like that.
And I'm like, well, I love Man of Steel.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to see what's to come with the Justice League movies. I just hope that it feels more polished. Like I was saying, I think this movie is like a really cool looking sports car that hasn't been washed in a while, and it needs to go through a car wash.
Right.
That's kind of how I view it.
That's cool. It's a good analogy, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was eh? You can leave us a comment on www.cinemaheroes.com, or you can go to our Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, or you can throw us a line on Twitter @CinemaHeroes. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading.